Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
Severe thunderstorms just to our south. How close will those get to the state line? We'll check it out coming up.
All right, Ben, and improving by the hour. One of Dan Gilbert's closest confidants says he's visited him in the hospital and has new insight into how he's doing after suffering a stroke.
But we begin at 5 with state police arresting a man who they say randomly shot at 2 cars along I-94 in the span of 24 hours. You heard that right. Police say they think those 2 shootings were totally random, but luckily nobody was hurt.
Yeah, we have video of state police making an arrest this morning of a suspect in connection to those shootings on 94 near 275 in Romulus over the past 2 days. Let's get out to Coco McAvoy live along I-94 with new information on how police found this guy, Coco.
Yes, this was a top priority for Michigan State Police because imagine being behind the wheel of your car and someone starts shooting at you randomly. That's exactly what was happening out on I-94 2 days in a row. So police did everything they could to catch the suspect. After 2 days straight of freeway shootings, police believe they have the shooter in custody.
I'm pretty confident that the person that we have in custody right now is going to end up being our guy.
That guy is a 25-year-old man who allegedly targeted cars randomly on I-94 yesterday and this morning.
The roads are bad enough as it is with distracted driving and people not paying attention, a little bit of road rage here and there, and then to worry about somebody randomly just going around shooting at cars. Nobody wants to have to suffer through that during their commute.
Michigan State Police got a second report of a shooting this morning. Officers shut down a portion of I-94 between Haggerty and 275 to investigate and started immediately connecting the dots.
Every once in a while we luck out and get some good old-fashioned police work.
Lieutenant Mike Shaw says the alleged shooter is no stranger to law enforcement.
This individual had some previous contacts with the local department here. That's how we were kind of able to lead us over to this direction.
Their investigation led them to the Barrington Apartments in Romulus. Police gathered boxes of evidence from the suspect's home and towed the suspect's car to build a case against him. And they're confident the threat is now over. And they're handing over the case to the prosecutor's office today, and they expect the suspect to be in court tomorrow. Back to you.
So police knew this guy a little bit, Coco. Did they think that he was acting alone in this, or do they think there could be someone else out there?
So police say they did look into that possibility, and they say all of the evidence right now leads them to believe that he acted alone.
That would be some good news. All right, Coco, thanks. Kim?
Well, this man right here has a big job ahead of him. Today, Samuel L. Stanley Jr. was named new president of Michigan State University. Dr. Stanley comes from Stony Brook University in Long Island, New York. He's a medical doctor and will officially take his post on August 1st. Our Steve Garagiola was in East Lansing today as Dr. Stanley was introduced and shows us why some have a problem with how the selection was made.
MSU's new president, Dr. Samuel Stanley, was introduced at the Board of Trustees meeting this morning. He says he's eager to take on the challenge of helping create a new culture at Michigan State.
I also see a Spartan community that has had a turbulent and difficult time, a community in need of healing.
On the issue of transparency, trustee Diane Byram says that's not an issue at all.
As we set out from the very beginning, we were very transparent about the process we were going to follow.
The process included hiring an outside advisor, setting up an 18-member search committee, hearing input from the community. But critics ask why Dr. Stanley's selection was kept a secret, as was the list of finalists, as was the selection process itself.
That's really concerning. That suggests that he is going along with this culture of secrecy, culture of never finding out what really happened, not wanting to know. That really concerns me.
There were no Nassar victims at today's meeting. Many of those families feel the process has done little to create confidence that the culture of secrecy has changed.
Our lack of confidence, our lack of trust is not with him because we don't know him. It's with the Board of Trustees. And the decisions they continue to make in private, the decisions they keep to make that keep others out of the decision-making process.
There is a lot of healing to be done at Michigan State.
What happened at MSU will not be forgotten. Instead, it will drive us every day to work together to build a campus culture of transparency, awareness, sensitivity, respect, and prevention.
You know, Dr. Stanley was at Stony Brook for 10 years as president, and things were going very smoothly. I asked him, why would you want to leave that and come to Michigan State, knowing what had happened here? And he said he really felt he did all he could do at Stony Brook. He was ready for new challenges and new opportunities, and he certainly has both now at Michigan State. Kimberly, back to you.
Well, Steve, did he say anything about his agenda? What's on the top of the list, maybe?
Well, you know, he talked a lot about, he's a medical doctor, some research projects in both science and medicine, but he mentioned more than a few times, tops of the list is healing. This is a campus with a lot of pain. He wants to immerse himself in the campus starting August 1st and really help change the direction that Michigan State is headed.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. Thanks, Steve.
A crash between a car and a semi in Taylor has part of Telegraph Road closed. Sky 4 shows the crushed cab of the truck leaking fluid and that sedan ending up near a tree with some major damage. You can just see how bad this was. Debris scattered throughout the intersection there of southbound Telegraph and North Line. No word on any injuries at this point, but right now that intersection remains closed. And a semi-fire closed southbound 75 in Woodhaven earlier. The closure at the West Road exit happening after several cars that truck was hauling caught on fire. Cars were only getting by on the left shoulder for a long time. The freeway, though, now is back open.
Detroit police are investigating a shooting on the city's west side. Police say one man was hurt, but there's no word on his condition. Shooting left the man's truck covered with blood and with bullet holes on the driver's side. According to a witness, the man who was shot got out of his truck with a baseball bat to chase the shooter.
We have a Local 4 update to a story we brought you on Monday. Just about an hour ago, Detroit police telling us they have made an arrest in connection to an armed robbery and deadly shooting at a gas station on the city's east side, all over a pair of Cartier sunglasses. At this hour, police have not released the name of the man in custody because he has not yet been formally charged.
Okay, let's get over to the weather. And for the second night in a row here, we're under the threat of severe storms.
Yeah, we see it happening all around us lately. And let's get over to Ben and see how close things are. Hey, Ben.
It's going to be close, but it's a really small chance. Most of this activity is going to remain to our south, but these storms are pretty potent. You can see all the lightning that's there. And when you follow that line back, there's a line that goes a little bit more north and south that looks like it's going to sort of scrape the state line as it marches east. So we're going to be very cognizant of where this goes. There are no warnings along that portion. All the severe thunderstorm warnings remain to our south. So we'll be watching our south zone pretty much exclusively. Everybody else can expect a dry evening. A lot of clouds around, at least in parts of the area. Temperatures, some of us got to the 80s. We'll see if we can get there again tomorrow, coming up in your 7-day forecast in just a few minutes. Guys?
Well, one of Dan Gilbert's closest confidants is sharing new insight into his condition after suffering a stroke this weekend.
Quicken Loan CEO Jay Farner says he's visited Gilbert in the hospital, and our Rod Maloney spoke with him today.
He's resting and recovering and, improving by the hour at this point in time.
At a news conference talking about another historic Detroit happening Gilbert and his team pulled off, the PGA playing the Rocket Mortgage Classic at the Detroit Golf Club next month. Quicken Loan CEO Jay Farner talked about his visit yesterday at Beaumont with Gilbert.
He's awake, he's responsive, he's, making great progress, but we're also trying to give him the time and space that he needs to focus on getting better.
Farner said Gilbert had his stroke in the hospital, and the medical staff immediately did a procedure to alleviate his symptoms, which left Gilbert staying in a hospital bed instead of going to Mackinac Island tomorrow for a keynote speaking engagement. And they aren't sure if he'll be up and on his feet in time for the golf tournament 3 weeks from now.
I've told him I'm not going to burden you with the things that are taking place from a business perspective. We've got it covered, and so he and his family can spend the time that they need to focus on the most important thing.
Detroit Free Press real estate writer and columnist John Gallagher calls Gilbert's health scare significant.
If he's off his feet for a few weeks and then comes back, it's not a big deal. If he's gone for a significant amount of time, I suppose that probably does set things back. And I think Detroit is holding its breath collectively over this.
And Gilbert's especially considering that Gilbert, he says, has done more than pretty much any other benefactor, including Al Taubman and Henry Ford II, people who helped the city along. He said Gilbert is right at the top of that list. In the meantime, Bill Emerson, Matt Cullen, who are two of Gilbert's top lieutenants, are going to be up in Mackinac Island filling in for him and taking care of all of that. Back to you.
And Rod, was he expected to be at the golf press conference today, Gilbert, that is?
Well, you know, I asked that question. It turns out he wasn't. It was going to be a travel day for him to go up to Mackinac, and he wasn't going to be at the news conference. But they're saying, look, Dan Gilbert is going to be stepping back, and they want him to get well. And if he shows up at the golf outing, fine. And if he doesn't, it's going to be just fine without him.
Yeah, getting well, definitely the most important thing. All right, Rod, thanks.
Well, let's bring in Dr. Frank McGeorge. We don't know a lot about Gilbert's circumstances, but for strokes in general, how important is it to get treatment right away?
Well, so the time of onset of symptoms to the time of treatment is actually one of the most important factors that we use to decide what options might be available. Now, to maximize the benefit compared to the risk of giving that clot-busting medication, TPA, it needs to be given ideally within 3 hours of onset, and in some cases, even 4.5 hours. But remember, that includes the time necessary to assess the person and ultimately do a CAT scan. So there's more time involved.
Why is it so important to get the CAT scan, by the way?
Well, so stroke can be caused by a number of different things. And so if the clot was formed in the brain itself or the clot traveled from somewhere else in the body, that can be treated with the clot-busting medication. Okay. But if a stroke was caused by a bleed, which we can see on CAT scan, the clot-busting medication would make the bleed worse, and you would absolutely not want to give it. And that's why we need the CAT scan to evaluate the difference between those two.
Yeah. Bottom line is get help immediately.
Exactly.
You feel those symptoms coming up. All right.
Inside, Doc.
Thanks, Doc. Well, there's much more ahead here on a Tuesday. Here's Defender Karen Drew.
School buses stopping to pick up precious cargo. So why are so many drivers ignoring the flashing lights?
Whoa, there he blew it. He blew it.
Guess what?
You realize you went past the school bus?
Not only are the cops out,
let's see if all of the drivers obey the signs.
But so are the defenders.
I'm not like on TV, am I?
Utter destruction just a few hours south of us in I-75 in Dayton, Ohio. We've got an up-close look at the damage from multiple tornadoes, and we'll show you why experts are calling this a once-in-a-generation storm.
But first, Kelly Stafford shares an emotional update on her recovery, what she says is different about her after her brain surgery. That's next.